is Nᴇᴜsᴜ. Join Omobola Sandra and Sage Babalola on the Morning Express on Mainland 98.3 FM from 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. as we invoke the thought-provoking discussion, tackle the tough questions, challenge assumption, and give a voice to the unheard. This is the Morning Express on Mainland 98.3 FM.
On the Morning Express.
Good morning.
Good morning and welcome to radio. This is Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. If you're looking for news analysis, you're looking for conversations around policies, you're looking for conversations around politics, well, you are at the right station. Every morning from 7:40 a.m. we make it a point of duty to offer you the latest headlines, to offer you in-depth analysis and captivating stories from the world of news, and the program is Trends in the Papers. Sage Babalola is my name. I'm your host for this morning, and I'm excited to bring you a fresh perspective on the week's most talked about events, both locally and sometimes even internationally. So what we do on Trends in the Papers is dive into some of the biggest stories making waves. We explore insightful opinions, most of which you, the listeners, would provide, and we perhaps even draw your attention to some center page stories that are somewhat relevant to the headlines. Don't forget to engage with us via social media. We can cater to any and every of your needs, irrespective of your geographic location. Hence, our attention to our social media platforms that double as our streaming platform. So from any part of the world that you are, you can join the program on Facebook and on YouTube as Mainland 98.3 FM, or you can listen via the Radio Guardian app. You can either download the app or you can listen via the Radio Guardian website. Search for Mainland 98.3 FM and you can connect to the program directly. Once again, it is Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. I'm Sage Babalola. I'll soon be joined by Fᴜဃᴜ, who will be with us virtually as we attempt to make sense of the stories that have been reported on the front pages of our dailies from now up until 8:30 a.m. Don't forget to join the live stream and take advantage of the live chat option and drop your submission. It's Open Mic Thursday today, so you get to enjoy some level of liberty when it comes to the matters you can address. Let's take a very brief break to ensure a secure connection with Fᴜဃᴜ before we kick off conversation, and then we begin reviewing the stories that have been reported on the front pages of our newspapers. I'm Sage Babalola. It's still Trends in the Papers. Don't go anywhere.
The airwaves in your market become more and more crowded. It's time to break it open and really stand out. It's here.
Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos.
Alright, well, thank you very much for your patience. We apologize. We needed to be sure that everything was right before we started to avoid any form of disruption or interruption. I told you that Fᴜဃᴜ will be joining us for conversations, and we do have our dailies here already. The Punch newspaper, Guardian newspaper, and Vanguard newspaper. We'll start things or kick things off by reviewing the stories on the front pages of the Guardian newspaper. There's quite a lot of stories on here, but we'll do the best we can, maximize the time that we have, so we're at least able to get through most of the stories on the front page of the Guardian. Fᴜဃᴜ, good morning. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good morning, Sage. How are you doing?
I'm well. I actually have a lot of pain meds in my system and I'm very slow, so you'd have to forgive me for my speed this morning. The job is the job, we'll do the job, but yeah, I'll do the best I can. But it's nice to hear from you again. Let's get into the stories of the morning. And speaking of health, today is World Diabetes Day and we have conversations about diabetes. If anything, the Guardian newspaper is actually reporting it as its top story, but then they're linking this to the inefficiency within the health sector. The headline reads, "Epidemic worsens as cost of drug hits 100,000 naira per patient on a monthly basis. Let me read the report in its entirety before we start to offer analysis. Now, we do have here on the front page of The Guardian, or there are a few riders that I would like to get through. Average of 7 million Nigerians affected. New survey shows 10.7% prevalence in Lagos, Ekiti, Osun, Oyo, Kwara, and 43% pre-diabetic. Care facilities squeezed, boast of one endocrinologist to 600,000 people, only 2 podiatrists nationwide. Association seeks SSB tax reintroduction and better use of places. Now, as countries mark World Diabetes Day today, the alarming burden of its prevalence in Nigeria and the anguish of sufferers and care practitioners alike have been brought to the fore. The deadly lifestyle disease is assuming an epidemic proportion nationwide, exceeding the national average of 5.7 to 10.7% in the southwestern part of the country, and about 43% of communities are now at risk. Now, the worst part is the cost of care now ranges between 500,000 to 800,000 naira per patient, with the estimated cost of medication in excess of 100,000 naira a month. Care practitioners told The Guardian that the recent 300 to 400% spike in drugs and consumables has pushed the option of care beyond most diabetics, and almost a death knell on the growing community of sufferers. For just so that we can manage time, it's a very alarming report to read, especially the part where we now have at least 7 million Nigerians suffering from diabetes, and we already have 43% of the population that are pre-diabetic. They're pretty much on their way to having diabetes. Their sugar levels are above normal, but they're not yet in the full diabetic stage. That's not the only alarming part. The other scary part is the fact that for the ratio is now 1 to 600,000. 1 being medical practitioner to 600,000 people, and the fact that we also have little specialists to cater to these issues. Imagine we have just one podiatrist. Now, a podiatrist is a doctor that focuses on treating leg injuries that diabetes patients suffer from. You know, they go through this period where it's information that I have, luckily, that I know, luckily, residual knowledge. But then it's just there's the disease of your leg, because you stop feeling things, your nervous system starts to act up, you don't feel things anymore, so they have sores on their legs, and sometimes they even have to get an application.
We only have 2 in Nigeria.
Fouad, 2 in nationwide, and there's 7 million people that have diabetes, and most likely with.
And then how many endocrinologists do we have? I think we have.
I'm trying to verify that information. Yes, it is. I was trying to manage the time that we have, but whilst we're trying to verify that particular information, that is what we have. And mind you, for our diabetes is not the only life-threatening condition that we have in the country. So how do we manage this? The ratio of healthcare practitioner to the rising amount of patients.
It has to be focused really. We have to be intentional about the health sector, and I don't see us getting very serious about these things, especially the problems we have in the health sector. I think it was just yesterday, the day before, if you remember, we're talking about the UCH being without power for 17 days. So what does that tell you? So if basic things like supply of electricity to medical facilities cannot be guaranteed, then how do we then guarantee expert care, for people who suffer from these kinds of ailments? If you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
So the basic things we cannot do, the very basic things like having, these health facilities function optimally when it comes to things like power supply, and all of the things that makes it hospital functional. We're also talking about shortage of basic staff. When I say basic staff, nurses, GPs, general physicians and all that, before you now begin to talk of expert consultants in special cases like this. And I look at, like I said, I have to read up on these doctors that take care of leg injuries, your foot and whatever when it comes to diabetic patients. And I'm surprised that we have only 2 in the whole of the country. Just 2. So again, when we talk about the fact that, look, we just have a lot of people in government, really. sometimes you want to ask yourself, do we even have a government? Because again, if you have a government, in a democracy, governance is supposed to be about the interest of the people. But it's almost like, look, we put a lot of people in government who just concern themselves without to take care of themselves. And maybe their family members, their cronies, and just a few people around them. But the larger people continue to look on these guys they submitted their mandate to better their lives, just passing around doing basically nothing. So, yes, it's one diabetes day, but the question is, for people who are diabetic, see, what amount of quality care can they get with this comatose and dysfunctional medical structure we have in the country? There's also the cost of prescription drugs.
Yes, 500,000 to 800,000. That's
how the cost are ballooned, skyrocketed, out of control. Because again, if you look at it, drugs that used to cost 10,000, I think the report is saying that now cost over 50,000 naira.
Yeah.
So if you aggregate these things, you understand that look, we are not in a good place. But it's not, the problem is not being in a bad, it's not being in a good place or being in a bad place. The question is, what is our response to where we are? What are we doing? How deliberate are we about fixing the problem? How intentional are we about fixing the problem? There's nothing to show that there's any meaningful or conscious effort to fixing the problem. It's just rhetoric, we budget to provisions, we talk, we take these things. And the fact is that people are dying from this ailment, okay?
Yes.
I'm telling you, for people to get quality medical care now, for diabetes, you must have a lot of money. If you don't have the money, people go to Agbo and all these kinds of things. And at the end of the day, when they die, people just move on with their lives. That's the story.
In the country, and because the ones that are at least known to be quality are now expensive, people have turned to cheaper brands, and is even causing them to suffer more complication. Because diabetes is also, there is a risk factor for diabetes is sedentary lifestyle and also the kind of food, your diet. And so people are roadside food, they're drinking carbonated drinks and junks and what have you. The average person at least consumes a large amount of sugar, processed sugar, and that so our diet is a problem. And the fact that we have turned to unhealthy alternatives because we cannot afford to eat healthy food. You know, for before, people will tell you that it's cheaper to buy an apple, and it was a few months ago. An apple was 200.
You know what it costs to buy one apple?
Exactly. An apple was 200 naira, and at least carbonated drink at the time was around 300 naira. So it was easy for them to advise you to buy a cheaper apple. But now one apple is 500 naira, and carbonated drink is 350 naira. So people would rather buy carbonated drink than go and buy an apple flavored drink than buy the apple itself.
I think it's apple drink. It's not flavored.
Well, that's also it's I don't think so far. That's not how it works. It's a lot of chemical It's expensive for juice extracts without additives. It's very expensive. You'd have to use more. Cost of production. I don't know all of the ingredients, but additives are more are cheaper. So if you're using just fresh apple,
give me that apple drink. And in their mind, they're already taking.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Freshly squeezed apple juice would cost a lot, maybe even 5,000 naira for a pack. Without.
But how I was saying, I was discussing with you, I think last week when I met a friend who was sharing this experience of organic agriculture with me. How there's a market for organic food. And I said that look, I was asking him how cheap it is really to look actually, there's a look at quite a lot.
Hello?
So which is more healthy and better for the body, but I don't think it.
Well, there's some sort of a disconnection. I think what we're going to do is try to call you back. Hopefully.
This important apple too that we think that these things have been preserved, because normally a fruit is just supposed to last for maybe a week maximum before it gets rotten. But you import these things, it takes days, it gets here, it still takes days, and you eat it and it looks a bit fresh and solid. It's not mean it's even very healthy for the body, because I've also taken apple directly from the farm. Hey, I don't know this imported apple. While in Turkey, of course, they do a lot of planting of apple, and there's a major difference between a apple that comes directly from the farm and the ones we are eating here in Nigeria. So what I'm just trying to say is that when it comes to eating healthy, you need a lot of money in Nigeria to be able to do that.
Indeed. Well, this report is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Hopefully tomorrow on Health Plus we're able to get an expert to join us in the studio to really dissect the topic of diabetes and also best practices when it comes to caring for those that have diabetes. Unfortunately, there's no one singular cure. It's a disease that you have to manage for the rest of your life. So
lifestyle,
yes, lifestyle. You have to lifestyle adjustments, diet, exercise, and you also have to be very religious with taking your medication. And unfortunately, medication is now averaged around 100,000 naira per day. So 100,000 per day, 500 to 800 monthly.
Monthly to take your diabetes in Nigeria.
Yeah, about 800,000 for a month, and at least 100,000 per day, depending on the severity and the complication that you have gotten. That's attributed to
I don't know the efficacy really, or how useful it is really for us to begin to look at alternative medicine. I'm talking about herbal medicine and how it works really for diabetes. See, we still see claims from our tribal medical experts who say that look, there are traditional solutions to this thing. But I don't know whether it's anything to begin to look into now that these ones are working.
Well, Fred,
it's still expensive for now in Nigeria.
Doctors, orthodox doctors would argue that because you're taking this traditional medicine without dosage, and so you're putting pressure on your kidney.
And we can begin to look at how they now, make it have dosage. Because again, there are people that will tell us that look, even the so-called drugs, prescription drugs are still from natural plants. So why can't we improve on what we have?
Well, it's processed. That there's a dose and there's a prescription, and it can be monitored by the doctor. It's different. If you buy traditional, it's not. I don't think a medical doctor would have time to monitor your dose. This story is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. You should read the report so you understand what's going on. But moving on to other stories right now, we have this particular headline as well on the front page of the Guardian. Federal government vows to crush new terror group amid 1,545 reported deaths last month. Divided to the story, new group retreating over military operation. Now, the federal government yesterday vowed to kick the Lakurawa terror group out of Nigeria. The National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, made the vow at the Comptroller General of Customs Conference in Abuja. He says, and I quote, "This Lakurawa terror group, or whatever it is called, is making a mistake. Nobody ever dares Tinubu and win. They have come at the wrong time," and NSA regarding his position on the infiltration of this new terror group in Nigeria. Stick around after we listen. We'll have Fuad also analyze this particular report.
And we are beginning to see the gains, what we call Tinubu gains. Hundreds of bandits are killed today, every day. Tinubu gains. We live everywhere in our own country today, free of fear. Tinubu gains. Things are changing. These so-called Lakurawa or whatever you call them, they are making a mistake. Nobody ever dares Tinubu and win. Nobody. They have come at a wrong time. Nobody has ever defeated Tinubu. And you are going to be defeated. I will kick you out of Nigeria. This is a Nigeria of 2024. And this is a Nigeria where I can assure you the critics will be quiet, one after the other. Things will change in our country, and it's already changing.
Well, as the voice of the NSA, Nuhu Ribadu, talking about insecurity in the country with emphasis on the new terror group that is terrorizing the northern region specifically of the country, and he's saying that, well, no one has tried the president and have won. We also have report that the ground operations of the military, well, the overall operations of the military has forced these Lakurawa terrorists to withdraw into Nigeria-Benin border, and there are still fears that this might just just be a temporary withdrawal. If we don't do something to permanently chase them out of the country, they might be regrouping and planning for their comeback. Fuad, what are your thoughts?
Since I've actually been trying to do a psychoanalysis of that particular video and the entire statement from the NSA, Mr. Nᴇᴜsᴜ. And for every indices of psychoanalysis of that particular video and statement, it gets more depressing for me. And I'll tell you why. Again, we're not talking about a political campaign. It was not a campaign podium where party members were being addressed. So at that point, you expect a lot of psychophancy, a lot of sweet statements, a lot of statements to get party members excited or political stuff. So if it's a political campaign platform, I probably want to excuse the NSA. I said, okay, well, they're just talking to party members. It's the usual thing. They need to get themselves excited and begin to say this thing. But you have a national security advisor at a point where our security personnel are alerting us to the entry and infiltration of a new terror group in the northern part of the country. Now we are still dealing with everyday killings of Nigerians. Now we are still dealing with restlessness and unrest and disturbances in the southeastern part of the country. Now we are still dealing with a situation where Nigerians are apprehensive to travel, the fear of kidnapping, banditry, and everything, the level of insecurity. In that particular report, there's also a report from an NGO on the number of Nigerians that were killed last month as a result of banditry, kidnapping, and insecurity in Nigeria. And then you have the National Security Advisor saying, we have the opportunity to assure and reassure Nigerians with a very methodical and thoughtful speech as to what the government is doing to improve on the problem of insecurity in the country. And he went on a psychophancy spree. Basically, nothing more than what you call psychophancy is what you pick from this to the no game, that's what you pick. A lot of people now focus on the statement page. In information management, basic information management page, what was Mr. Nᴇᴜsᴜ trying to achieve? With that, nobody gets to know and win. Nobody. Stage, just imagine you are saying it this way. Oh, we know that it's a lacular people who are coming, but nobody builds Nigeria and win. Check it before the MSA was saying, nobody builds Tinubu. What personalizing? Is it a dictatorship? Is it a monarchy? So why not hope? Nigeria will always win. Nigeria will always win. Nobody builds Nigeria and win. Nigeria will crush them. But instead, Tinubu builds. I look at the lie that, people are now moving around freely without any fear. I want you to listen to it. In that statement, as it is, so everybody now moves freely. See, so everybody moves freely in Nigeria now without any fear. According to the National Security Advisor, Tinubu gains. Everybody now moves freely in all games. See, like I said, I spent time about to even discuss with some senior colleagues on this particular statement of the NSA. In fact, I have to also speak with security experts to say, can you help me do a proper psychoanalysis of the NSA and what it was trying to achieve on that podium? And in doing it, in basic communication, you now begin to take the English as okay. In what environment was he speaking? What was the ambience? What kind of audience was he addressing? So at that point, you can begin to say, okay, all right, When you look at it and say, okay, where was his choice of words? Was that statement scripted or not? And then you now begin to do a perceptual analysis of the entire statement. And for every of the indices of psychoanalysis of the human value, it's called zero. Because at the end of the day, even the facts on ground are shown that what he was saying was incorrect. But instead of being now telling us that, oh, I keep saying these things. One of the first steps to solving the problem, see, is you first accepting that there's a problem. Before you can solve any problem, whether it is for every basic development planning in the world, the first thing they will tell you that, look, identify the problem. And in identifying the problem, you must first accept that there's a problem. And then you now begin to work around solutions, actions, evaluation, and the consistencies that comes with your policy on that particular problem. But when you have a national security advisor that is supposed to be in charge of intelligence gathering, that's supposed to be a bit more discreet and cautious and show some level of decorum in the statement, based on the circumstances, I'm like, are we going to get anywhere with this? It's longer than what you play. This one, and this captures this particular part of our conversation. And then you went on the economic look. This one, this aspect. Sage, the NSA has told us that Nigerian can move around free. So, it's to the good games. We're not saying that there are no achievements Nigerians there. I think we've been getting reports from the military that look, these guys have been taken out, some of these troublemakers. Some of these terrorist groups have been taken out. They are being killed in their numbers. I would have thought that we would have stayed on that script, say, oh, we've gotten this information, we are working tirelessly. There's a coordinated approach among security operatives to tackle these guys. And the grace of God, Nigeria will never lose. Nobody dares Nigeria. Simple basic information management, and when you get a study of this thing from the highest level of our government, you understand why nothing gets done. It's either we evaluate these guys, it's either, when they get into power, they suddenly become something else. Sage, you can paraphrase it, you can defend yourself, you can be delusional about it. There's trouble in the land with this quality of leadership, whether anybody likes it or not.
Well, you can find that story on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. It's regarding the position of the NSA on insecurity generally and the emergence of the Lakurawa terror group. Reports indicate that at least 1,500 people have been killed and 971 others have been abducted. Well, the NSA seems to think that the security issues in the country are starting to subside, but, well, otherwise.
So, fit that into what the NSA is saying. Where is the NSA getting its own data from? Does it stay in this country? And can the NSA also take a drive from Abuja to Lagos without security? Drive himself? Can we do that?
Maybe no, I think not.
Okay, so but now Nigeria, everybody can move free without any fear. To the good games.
Moving on to a related story, we do have also on the front page of The Guardian, vandals attack another transmission station in Kogi. The transmission company of... The transmission company of Nigeria, TCN, yesterday announced in Abuja that armed group attacked 330, 132 and 33 kV transmission substation construction site in Obajana, Kogi State. General Manager of TCN, Didi Mba, said the development resulted in damage to a critical power transformer component. The attack occurred around 11:55 p.m. on the 12th of November, and it involved a group of armed assailants who fired shots indiscriminately, causing the security personnel on site to flee. Now, the TCN is currently working with the project contractor to assess the extent of damage and the potential impact on the substation's timeline. This is according to Umba, and this is the latest in a series of attacks targeting Nigeria's power infrastructure, adding to the financial and operational burden on TCN and other energy stakeholders. When we started getting this report last month that multiple power station and transmission lines have been vandalized, we got the presidential directive that engineers that would fix it should be provided provided security support whilst they fix it, and power was subsequently restored in the part of the north that were affected. And you asked
my question to you on that story.
You did ask a question that would security be provided for these transmission lines and these power infrastructures moving forward? If the attack happens again, what would be the next line of action? Well, this is me asking you that particular question.
So the TCL is telling you that look, and Arsenal are now again destroying some of our transmission lines. And when we are supposed to have a national security, we are supposed to be focused on things like that. We are supposed to be very busy. This is not the time that we are supposed to see some level of seriousness in his statement, in his car, because again there's also perception management stage in these things. We are supposed to see a national security advisor around the podium showing, and then you see just talking more like you know, ask the question that look, we have to fix these transmission lines, providing security. The army has to join. I said, look, we need to look at the bigger picture. We need to look at something more sustainable on this particular problem. Now, after we fix these transmission lines, I we going to station our security officers, now I'm able to watch this thing, and now look at the reports you are getting. Because if you want to begin to have terrorist organizations or arsenals in your country, you now begin to attack your power infrastructure. You should know that they know what is deliberate. So what we are saying is that look, can we get the message to help accept that we are in a bad place? And that look, yes, we have what it takes to solve the problem, but I mean that there's a problem first, and a serious problem at that. Before you now begin to go the psychopathic free and everybody gets to know. So because everybody gets to know and know now, we have solved the problem. And so it's not supposed to be about Nigeria. It's supposed to be a personal thing. Sometimes, you look at some of these things, you think, but every day it keeps coming, you look at it again, you check and check again. Sometimes you want to be a bit optimistic about some of these things, but you bring these things and you're like, where are we again on this one?
Oh, thank you very much, Fuad. I apologize for those of you that are still joining in. You are listening to Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. It is trends in the papers. I'm Sage Babalola. I'm having conversations with Fuad Said. Together, we're reviewing the front page of the Guardian newspaper, keeping you up to speed with events happening within the polity. And of course, our reference is the reports that made it to the front pages of our dailies. We're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube at Mainland 98.3 FM. I already see some of you dropping your contributions, and we appreciate that. Keep using the chat box on our streaming platform to drop your submissions, and when it's time to take public opinion, we would read all your messages. Fuad, if you would please indulge me, and maybe we could spend about 2 minutes on each story, because there's a ton of stories that we need to address here, and I would really like for us to do so before time runs out. On page 18, we have on the front page, Disco suspend Unistar meter phase out over FCCPC's directive. Eko and Ikeja Electricity Distribution Company said they are maintaining the status quo on their plans to phase out Unistar meters amid directive by the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission to suspend any replacement move. The FCCPC issued a directive for discos to hold off on meter replacement to prevent potential disruption and increased costs for customers already facing economic challenge. So, Fred, there is an Electricity Regulatory Commission order that if you are going to phase out meters and replace it with new ones, there are guidelines that you must follow. It must be done very swiftly, it must be done promptly, and no cost should be pushed to the users. They are not to pay for any of the, and as a matter of fact, they do not have to pay estimated billing until you are able to implement that policy. So whilst you are phasing out the meters, the people are not supposed to pay estimated billings, and since discos and all the power as stakeholders might not be able to very swiftly follow that guideline, chances are the phase out process would see people paying thousands of naira to replace it, and may have to pay estimated billing until they fully supply the new meters. It is a contravention of the regulatory order, and so the FCCPC is asking them to hold off on the phasing out of the Unistar meter. I think Nigerians will be very happy about this one.
I think we have to commend the FCCPC for been there, we've been talking about it. Customers have been complaining that they have to bear the burden of the decision of these discos to face out this particular kind of meter. Because if you're facing it out, it probably was supposed to be a gradual thing.
Yes.
Just ensure that you have the meters you want. Discos. I just go to those houses and install them.
Yes.
Have a good rapport with the customers. Give them the timeline. We are coming with the meter to replace what you have.
Yes.
Not for them to be paying.
Yes.
Because you want to face out something. And that doesn't make any sense really. And so you just face it out and you'll not be on a steady bill until when the meters come and then you cause chaos and crisis and begin to put people onto untold and pay again. So this one I think we have to commend the SCCPC. I think Mr. Tʀᴇɪᴅs is a particular commission for doing this to protect Nigerians again from these exploitative tendencies of these discos. Despite their inefficiencies and incapacity lack of capacity to even do the right thing when it comes to customer service. So if they want to face out to meter, well, that's their problem. They should just ensure that they do it in a very methodical way that will not put stress on the people. And how do they do it? Get the meters ready, go to people's houses and change it. At no cost. Because it's your problem that you want to face out something. I should not bear the cost of you trying to face out something when I already got it in the first place. You didn't even fail in the first place.
Yeah. Well, that story is on page 18 of the Guardian newspaper, so I think Nigerians can relax now. The phasing out has been paused for now until the discos are able to fulfill the obligation of making sure the transition is swift and people don't have to be placed on estimated billing.
At no cost.
Or at no cost whatsoever. You don't have to pay for the service. It is the onus is on them. They're the one that decided to phase it out. There's a new system, and so the people should not have to bear the brunt of that transition. And until they're able to fulfill that obligation, the phasing out would be paused for now, all thanks to the FCCPC. All right, it's on page 18 of the Guardian newspaper. Let's talk a little politics for Yᴏᴜᴜ Wike is in the news again. Wike justifies houses for judges, says no chance for Atiku in PDP. The rider Falana, Wike ignoring concerns about potential buyers. Now the story in itself, Minister of the Federal Capital Territory Yᴏᴜᴜ Wike has said the 2023 presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, will be rejected again if he attempts to run for presidency in 2027. He said the construction of houses for judges was not his policy, but part of the welfare packages President Bola Tinubu designed for the judges to promote the independence of the judiciary. Wike insisted that he was only performing his duty of implementing the project, which was approved in the 2024 budget. He explains, and I quote, Tinubu said, "Where are the judges living? They have no homes and therefore open to political manipulation. For me, as a president who wants to guarantee the independence of the judiciary, judges must have their homes." End of quote. It continues, but again, we have to pause there. Fuad, there was outcry on social media. People had reservations when news broke that Yᴏᴜᴜ Wike built houses for judges. Now he's clarifying that this is not a personal project of his. The president actually approved the houses for the judges. All he did was implement the directive of the president, and the president did this to ensure that judges are not open to manipulation and they're not living around criminals and what have you. Fᴜဃᴜ, on the other hand, senior advocate of Nigeria, says that these three tiers of government, executive, the center of course, and the judiciary, let's focus on those two. There's a budget for the judiciary. If you want to do something for them, you run it through the judiciary. You don't do you don't act like the executive is doing the judiciary a favor and exactly giving them house keys. You put the money into their budget and build those houses for them. And then he of course took jabs at Atiku Abubakar that he has shown himself all these years. He has told people about his capacity, but still people continue to reject him, and he would have no chance if he decides to run in the 2027 election. If you'd like to take those stories simultaneously, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll take the stories, and I think the first one on the executive now, helping the judiciary to run their budget, basically giving them houses, giving them cars. Say a lot of times we see very unfortunate situations where governors line up judges to receive cars, like school children. you see, what I keep questioning about a commitment to nation building. A commitment to nation building is about how you can also ensure that the ingredients of democracy is sustained. And president of democracy say, the checks and balances that must come from the three arms of government, the executive, legislature, and judiciary. And when we begin to do things to kill the essence of checks and balances, the independence of the different arms of government, for in a fully functional government, you know that we are not committed to anything, but just deceiving ourselves. At the end of the day, what do you have now? Look at the legislature you have now. A legislature that will be so happy for the legislators to sing on your mandate you stand. A legislator that has become practically overserved. And now look at the judiciary, which is supposed to be a last hope of the common man. In fact, it's supposed to be that arm of government that solves every other problem that we cannot solve when it comes to governance in a democracy. Look at what it has now become. And here we are talking about perception management, because even in the justice system, they say that look, justice must have been seen to have been done. It's not when you don't do it. There's a perception management of what we are seeing. So when you have a situation where the minister says it's not a project, but because the president was so concerned about where the judges were living, trying to do that this for them, blah blah blah. The question is that look, do you have budget for the judiciary? Why don't you run that entire project through the budget of the judiciary? So that doesn't seem like it is a favor from the president to the judiciary. That fact it is so difficult to beg our politicians, say, to please preserve this democracy, to please make it work. And you know the unfortunate thing, they forget even that the things they do today will in the future come back to haunt them. Look at the ways we now present our judges. Look at the credibility issues around the judiciary. This is probably the worst time ever in the history of the country when it comes to the reputation of the judiciary. And it's not out of anything, it comes out of the activities of our politicians. We don't want to leave these judges alone. To the program that is looking at free judgments are being shocked, like when you are buying Gary in the market. The report can now say that politicians now know the courts they can go to get favorable judgment. And once we have now gotten to that point, when nobody trust the judiciary again, what is the rest of our democracy? Please. Why don't you want to go to the NJC to say, okay, what is in the budget, the budget to be appropriated for, what we want better welfare for our judges, so that they can do their job well. But don't you want to eat up, don't let the entire thing up, that's what we're saying. And it's actually not for us to beg from our politicians. It's a wicked, can you tell me wicked does not know at this level? So it's what it is. That is again the reason why I keep asking and questioning and commitment to nation building. That are very much committed to it over what the civil affairs. Because we will not come with political explanations now. But again, this is the story of Nigeria with our democracy. And one of the issues of Atiku not having returned to the PDP. Well, the PDP will sort that out. Atiku will also sort that out. Their internal problem. How can lost to have to do some wickedness day? What is the end goal for you? Where are you going with this new agenda? After minister, what else do you want to do? And can you, out of good conscience, say you've done everything, to put the house of PDP together? I listen to, every time you go the media charts, it's like an emperor on the chart, say some manner of things, contradict himself. A lot of times, if you look at what he has said in the past, what he's saying now, you see a man that keeps talking about integrity, but again, what he says and what he has said before, talking that is about integrity. But again, that is the way legislator wants to run it.
Of these politicians, the Labour Party candidates in the election, the appeal court sacked that candidate, Ebi-Sheni, and I really don't know how it is going to play out when the election is just a few days from now, the governorship election, and the appeal court sacks the Labour Party candidate of the Indo election. So what is going to happen? I'm very interested. But people are just looking at the time that you have for that. They will wait to see what happens.
Even though I don't think, with all due respect, I think it's a two-horse race. But if you have legal issues at this dying minute of the election, this last day of the election, if it's an appeal court judgment, you can still, of course, challenge it at the Supreme Court level. But it's not always a good thing to have these kinds of issues very close to election. Even though I doubt if it's going to be having any real showing. It's as if you see PDP thing from what we've seen so far.
Well, I really was of the headlines and then just look at one story on the front page of the Punch. We have custom overshoots 5 trillion naira target, anticipates 10% leap. Custom continues to declare profit. That's very good for them.
Profit on the things of the people. Importers are complaining.
Well,
it's also a problem.
They have a target of 5 trillion and they are even overshooting and they're anticipating like
so that's overshooting that target now. What does it amount to? How does it benefit online Nigeria?
Well,
it's also to have overshot this target. If more money has been made available to more, really. Does it trickle down to better living for online Nigerians?
That's a question they themselves can answer. It's on page 30.
They can answer because people are complaining and the importers are complaining. Everybody is complaining. They are sort of overshooting their target, but does it come down to better living for the people? That's the ultimate question for me.
Most people have their things in demurrage, actually. We have here, ICPC laments risk in probing high-profile cases is on page 4. This report basically just tells us that the ICPC boss is complaining that when they investigate high-profile individual, there's usually risk, security threats to their investigators, and also they are very underfunded, they are understaffed, and so it makes it difficult for them to properly investigate and see that individuals that are investigated are convicted, are taken to court and tried properly. They also lamented the fact that our courts are inundated with a lot of, forgive me, but very unnecessary cases, and so sometimes it will take years to even have the courts to have time to prosecute a high-profile individual that is suspected of committing crimes in the nation. You can read that full report on page 4 of the Guardian.
The program where we can fight against corruption. We are just deceiving ourselves, and we are getting nowhere with it.
And finally, on the front page of the Guardian, we have here NHRC raises alarm on rise in kidnappings, killings, and child abandonment. Is on page 4, and I know Fuad is just about to relate it to the statement of the NSA. But then so far, we've seen an increase in kidnapping, killings, and also child abandonment. Is on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. Okay, Makinde Adeleke presents 678 billion and 390 billion naira budgets to lawmakers. And that's what we have on the Guardian. Very briefly, let's take this one story on the front page of the Punch. ATMs empty as banks ration withdrawals is on page 31 of the Punch newspaper. Fat, I don't know if you've seen this movement on social media where people are advocating for the eradication of POS operators, that it is their activities that is causing ATMs to be empty, and there's some sort of connivance and colluding between these POS operators and those in the banking sector, that they deliberately make money unavailable, so you have to patronize these POS operators, and so they should be eradicated completely. What do you think about that whole notion?
You can't have what you can decide to cut the exchange. I understand that's a problem really. How POS operators have the cash and the banks don't have it. How the teller machines cannot also disperse. But just across the road, there's somebody there who has the cash. You can't throw the baby with the bathwater. People that are saying this are living in your bank centers where there are teller machines and what have you. But see, if you go into the rural areas, you understand the importance of having these POS operators, because what they do is to help bank the unbanked population, the unbanked parts of the country. So you cannot just say, oh, because we should feel there's a problem, let's be methodical about the solution to the problem. Let's understand that there seems to be some sort of sharp practices, in how these POS operators operate, especially in unbanked centers. But if you look at what they are helping to do in the unbanked part of the country, you understand that we cannot just say, oh, we should eradicate them. You have to look at the operations of the banks when it comes to dispensing of cash, and also how the POS operators are also becoming a problem. And then find the regulators to come into the issue and help us solve it. But to say that POS operators should not work, wait. I know what I'm saying. You go to some places, in a whole local government, you just have only one bank.
Right. It's quite unfortunate. Well, that's everything we have for you for this morning. It's Open Mic Thursday, so after this commercial break, we'll be back to hear what you have to say about these stories and even the ones you like to bring to the fore. It's Mainland 98.3 FM. Mainland Focus will come up after the 10 minutes commercial. I'm Sage Babalola. Please don't go anywhere.
Hey there! Yes, you! You just won